Silence is the sound that ego fears the most. And they're hearing it now, aren't they? That silence you gave them, not out of weakness, not out of pain, but out of power. They don't say it, but it's eating them alive. That silence used to be filled with your texts, your check-ins, your efforts, your apologies for things you didn't even do. But now, it's just empty. No pings, no posts, no you. And that, my friends, is the sound that's driving them insane. They don't fear being blocked. They don't fear being left. They fear being ignored, because it means they've lost the power to affect you. You see, ignoring someone is not passive. It's not running away. It's not weakness. It's strategy. It's the loudest answer you can ever give to someone who mistook your patience for desperation. You're not ignoring them to win them back. You're ignoring them to win yourself back. Before we go deeper, do this for yourself right now. Like this video, subscribe, and drop this in the comments. My silence is the confrontation. Say it like a vow, because today you're going to stop being the reaction. You're going to become the trigger. Hey folks, imagine this. Imagine someone who thought you were trash. They talked down to you, played with your feelings, ghosted you like you didn't even exist, like your heart was a doormat they could wipe their ego on. And every time they left, they knew you'd be there, like a fool with open arms. But then one day, the fool goes silent. One day, they walk in and the room is empty. No messages, no reminders, just space. And now they're standing in that silence, realizing what they threw away. That's you now. You were always the prize. But they treated you like a placeholder, like someone they could keep around while chasing someone else. And you accepted it, didn't you? You tried harder. You begged. You believed that if you just loved them harder, they'd change. But love doesn't fix what ego breaks. And ego never sees the value until it's gone. Let's break this lie open. They didn't leave because you were too much. They left because they were too little. They didn't ghost you because you were too emotional. They ghosted you because you had the kind of depth they couldn't handle. They mistook your vulnerability for weakness. But the truth is, it was their soul that was empty. Yours was just too real for someone who can't even look in the mirror without flinching. Now that you've gone quiet, they're starting to spiral, but they'll never admit it, because pride never apologizes. It just pretends. They'll act like they're fine, like they don't notice. But inside, they're checking your stories, watching who you're with, overthinking every second of your silence. Because ego can't handle not being the center of attention. And now, they're no longer the center of yours. This silence, this ignoring, it's not avoidance, it's evolution. You're not being petty. You're finally being powerful. You're no longer trying to be chosen. You've realized you're the one doing the choosing now. Let them suffer in the space they created. Let them drown in the silence they once handed you. Because you're not chasing, you're not proving, you're not breaking anymore. You're rising. Say it again, louder this time. My silence is the confrontation. Type it in the comments. Let them see it. Let them feel it. Let yourself own it. And don't forget, like this video, subscribe, and stay with me. Because what happens next when you ignore them? That's when the real regret begins. Number 1. They thought you'd break first until you didn't. They lost the game the moment you stopped playing. And they felt it. Not the day you cried, not the day you begged, not the night you broke down alone in your room wondering what you did wrong. They didn't feel your pain when you were hurting. They only felt it when you got quiet, when you stopped texting, when you stopped watching their stories, when you finally stopped playing the role they cast you in. That's when the panic began, because control doesn't break with noise. It collapses in silence. You were the one always waiting, like a loyal dog sitting at the door, ears perked, tail wagging, hoping, just hoping, they'd come back and love you properly this time. But you weren't a dog. You weren't even a choice. You were a placeholder, a safety net, someone they could throw emotional scraps at when the world ignored them. And what did you do? You caught them, every single time. You gave them comfort they didn't earn, peace they didn't protect, and loyalty they didn't even understand. Until one day, you stopped. One day, that dog stopped waiting at the door. One day, that warm welcome they took for granted wasn't there anymore, and now they're confused. Now they're pacing in silence, because they don't know what to do when you stop showing up. You were supposed to break. You were supposed to fall apart without them. That was the whole trap. They kept testing how far you'd go, how many times you'd forgive, how much pain you'd swallow. They dangled false hope in your face like a leash. Maybe we'll talk again. Maybe we'll see where it goes. Maybe someday. And you believed it, because your heart was real. But here's what they didn't see coming: the silent switch. The moment you flipped from begging to building, from needing them to needing nothing from them, because you finally saw the pattern and you broke it. The moment you said nothing was the moment everything changed. They don't admit it, but they felt that shift in their chest like a collapse, because they were never afraid of losing you. They were afraid of losing their power over you. You were the emotional charger they kept plugging into. And now that you've disconnected, their battery's dying. But they'll never show it. They'll pretend they're fine, that they don't care, that they're unbothered. But if you weren't important, why are they still watching you in silence? Let me break this lie for you once and for all. You weren't too much. You were too giving for someone who was emotionally bankrupt. They couldn't match your depth. They couldn't sit with your truth. So instead, they blamed you, called you clingy, dramatic, sensitive, made you feel like you were the problem for simply wanting consistency. And you believed it, didn't you? You doubted your worth. You looked in the mirror and wondered if maybe you really were unlovable. But let me say this clearly: you forgot who the hell you are. You were the constant. You were the safe space. You were the one who stayed when everything inside you screamed to leave. And now that you've gone silent, that's the loudest message you'll ever send. They lost the game the moment you stopped playing. It's hard, I know, because everything inside of you still wants to fix things, still wants to explain, still wants closure. But that's the trap. They've trained you to think your voice will bring peace, when in reality, your silence is what brings power. You don't owe them another word, not one more explanation, not one more message they'll pretend not to care about. You owe that energy to yourself now. You owe it to the version of you who bent over backwards just to be treated like background noise. So stop asking what they're thinking. Stop wondering if they miss you. Stop hoping they'll wake up, because what they're really waking up to is your absence. And that's the one thing they never prepared for. Right now, I need you to rise, not in noise, but in stillness, not to prove a point, but to protect your peace. You're not being cold, you're finally being clear. You don't belong in the cycle of almosts and maybes. You don't belong in the hands of someone who can't even see your value without losing you first. Say this out loud and type it in the comments like a line you'll never cross again. I don't break, I rise. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you that the game is over. They underestimated your silence. They'll regret your evolution. And what's coming next? Let's just say they haven't even felt the full weight of your absence yet. Stay with me. The silence is just getting started. Number 2, the ego panics without response. They don't show it, but they're spiraling. That ego, The one that ghosted you, rejected you, breadcrumbed you. It's starving now. Because here's what most people never tell you. The human brain craves feedback. It needs reaction to feel in control. It survives on proof that it still matters, that it still holds space in someone else's mind. Without that, it starts to panic. And that's exactly what your silence is doing to them right now. You've removed the mirror they used to look into, to see themselves. You've taken away the validation supply they used to inhale like oxygen. Now the air feels different, and their ego is suffocating. At first, they felt powerful. They thought cutting you off would teach you a lesson, that ignoring you would pull you in harder, that leaving you on seen would make you chase. But when you didn't, when the silence stretched past the timeline they expected, that's when the cracks started forming. Because in the absence of your response, they only have one thing left to feed on, their own fear. And let me tell you, folks, that fear is growing fast. Now they're watching you in ways you can't even see. They're checking your page late at night on burner accounts just to make sure you haven't forgotten them. They're refreshing your story like it's a lifeline. They're posting those "I'm good without you" quotes with just enough drama to make you think it's about someone else. But you know the game, you know the timing, you know exactly who it's for. They're not over it, they're obsessed with hiding that they're not over it. You see, when someone's ego gets used to being fed, whether by your love, your anger, or your pain, it becomes addicted. And now that you've stopped responding, you've taken away its drug. The panic doesn't show in obvious ways, but it's there. Watch how they suddenly start posting more, suddenly start going out more, suddenly start trying to live their best life in a way that screams for your attention. That's not healing, that's noise, that's ego trying to rebuild its image after you stopped feeding it. Let's break this down. They're not acting confident, they're reacting to the silence, your silence. Because silence is a weapon, and not the kind that wounds, the kind that exposes. It leaves them alone with the thoughts they've been avoiding, the guilt they shoved down, the truth they tried to silence with distractions. Now, without your responses to absorb their shame, they're forced to face themselves. But they don't want to admit that. So what do? They drop likes on your old posts, accidentally view your stories, follow people close to you, post inside jokes you once shared, just to trigger something, anything, a reaction, a crack, a slip, because they need to know they still have access, that they still matter, that they still own a little piece of you, even after they left. But you've changed. You've evolved past the need to react. You're not giving them that high anymore. You're not falling into their trap. You're watching from a distance, with peace in your hands, while they flail in the dark, pretending they're okay when you know they're not. This is when the power shifts, when they realize they no longer control the narrative. You do. Because silence doesn't make you weak. It makes you unpredictable. And unpredictability, that's the death of ego. Let them panic. Let them scroll. Let them question why the energy they were once so sure of now feels like it never existed. Let them doubt their own memory of your love, because in your silence they are finally learning what they never learned in your presence. You were the only constant they ever had. And now, that constant is gone. So say it loud, and say it for every time you thought silence was weakness. I don't respond. I reclaim. Drop it in the comments. Let them feel it. You've taken back your power. You've pulled the plug on their performance. And in the next chapter, we'll dive even deeper into the mask they're wearing and the storm you've left behind. Stay with me. The ego is cracking, and the silence is only getting louder. Number 3. They'll pretend it doesn't hurt, but it burns. They'll act fine, but watch how loud their silence becomes. You'll see it, not right away. Not in a tearful confession or a desperate apology. No, they're too proud for that. What you'll see instead is the mask. The one they wear so tightly it's almost convincing. The smiles, the captions, the "I'm doing great" energy. The parties, the new people, the staged happiness. But look a little closer, my friends, and you'll feel it in your gut. Something's off. It's not strength. It's not healing. It's survival. Because people who are truly at peace don't try to prove it to the world. They'll post a picture laughing with friends. They'll write something like, "Life's never been better." But that's not truth. It's defense. It's armor. It's what people wear when they've been cracked inside, but don't want the world to see the bleeding. And what's underneath that smile? A scream. 1,000 quiet regrets they can't share with anyone, because sharing it would mean admitting one thing: they messed up when they let you go. You see, silence doesn't just echo, it exposes. And your silence, your decision to walk away, to not react, to not chase, it's haunting them. But they'll never say it, not out loud, because their ego is still clinging to control. They want to act like you didn't matter, like your absence didn't shake their world. But let me tell you something brutally honest. They're breaking. Quietly, slowly, painfully. It hits them when the crowd goes home, when the notifications stop, when they're in bed alone, staring at the ceiling with a screen in their hand, and your name just inches away, but they can't text you because pride won't let them. That's when it stings. That's when the tears come, not the ones they post about, the ones no one sees, the 1 a.m. breakdowns, the moment they realize they lost someone real while chasing illusions. They thought they were the prize. They thought you were replaceable, that there would be another you, another warm soul to love them that deeply. But you weren't just love, you were presence. You were consistency. You were a mirror to their mess and a balm to their ego. And now that you're gone, they're left with only themselves. That's the pain they can't mask for long. And here's the thing, they'll never admit the full truth. Because in their world, vulnerability is weakness. Accountability is defeat. So they'll keep the mask on. But the cracks are growing. The smiles are forced. The silence between posts, between fake laughs, between "I'm fine" texts. It's getting heavier. Because your silence doesn't just hurt. It confronts. It holds up a mirror and says, "This is what you destroyed. This is what you lost." But don't go back. Don't comfort them. Don't fall for the illusion that your love can heal what they refuse to acknowledge, because you're not their fixer. You're not their emotional crutch. You were never meant to be a supporting role in someone else's ego show. They wear the mask, and now you've stopped playing the role. That's the most powerful move you could ever make. You're not feeding the performance anymore. You're not giving them something to react to. You're just gone, still, elevated, focused. And in that stillness, they are finally forced to sit with the weight of who they really are, without your light to soften the truth. And yes, it hurts. You still think about them. You still wonder if they feel anything at all. But I promise you, they do. Just because they don't show it doesn't mean they don't suffer. Some people scream through silence. Some beg without words. And right now, they're begging. Not with texts, not with calls, but with every desperate attempt to appear unaffected. So hold your ground. You've come too far. You've done the inner work. You've felt the fire and walked through it. Don't go back to be the bandage on the wound they gave themselves. Say this and mean it. I let them wear the mask. I just stopped playing the role. Type it in the comments. Let it be your vow. Let it be your boundary. Let it be the line they never cross again. They'll pretend it doesn't hurt, but it burns. And what's coming next in your silence, that's the part they'll never be ready for. Stay with me. The mask is slipping. And your power. It's just getting started. Number 4. Your absence becomes the trigger. They thought your presence was permanent, like gravity, something they never had to earn, never had to question, never had to fear losing. But now that you've vanished, the illusion is collapsing. Because here's the truth they never saw coming. When you remove gravity, everything falls. Your attention was the force holding their confidence together. They didn't notice it while they had it. In fact, they mocked it, took it for granted, ignored your check-ins, rolled their eyes at your efforts, dismissed your loyalty like it was some annoying background noise. But now that it's gone, that silence, it's not peace to them, it's chaos. They can't explain it, not even to themselves. They won't tell anyone they're spinning out, but they are. Because now you've become the question they can't answer. Did I matter? Why aren't they chasing? Did they find someone else? Are they finally over me? It's the uncertainty that's killing them, not knowing where they stand in your world anymore. That's the revenge they never expected, to become irrelevant. See, attention is like a drug, and you were their fix. Maybe not in the traditional sense, maybe they never admitted it, but your energy was their ego's food. The moment you cut it off, the withdrawal began, and now they're left pacing mental hallways with doors that lead nowhere. Wondering, replaying, regretting. You were the one they thought would always be there. The one they could come back to whenever they wanted. The one they could mistreat today and text next week. But now, that option is off the table. You're not reacting. You're not posting sad quotes. You're not showing up where they expect. You're just gone. And that absence, that's what's tearing them apart. Because they never prepared for a version of you that didn't need them anymore. And don't be fooled, they're not panicking out loud. No, that would mean admitting they're affected. Instead, they overcompensate. They post more. They look happier. They surround themselves with distractions. But that's all it is. Distraction. Smoke. A mask to cover the inner collapse. Because when the attention dies, the ego crumbles. You want to know why your silence hits harder than any fight ever could. Because they can't respond to it. They can't argue with it. They can't manipulate it. Silence is the one thing they can't twist into control. It's a wall they can't scale, a mirror they can't avoid. And in that silence, you become the trigger. Not by doing anything, but by doing nothing. You don't need to call them out. Your absence already is. You don't need to seek revenge. Your silence already burns. You don't need to prove your worth. Their panic is the proof. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you felt this powerful? When was the last time you stopped explaining yourself? When was the last time they were the ones losing sleep while you finally rested? This is the shift. This is where everything turns. You're not their supply anymore. You're not their fallback plan. You've become a ghost that haunts their self-esteem. Because the truth is, they didn't just lose a person. They lost the version of themselves they only felt when they were around you. And that version is gone now, lost in the space you left behind. And no matter how hard they try to recreate it with someone else, it won't work. You were the gravity, you were the peace, you were the spark, and now that you've left the room, everything is falling. Say this and feel the weight of it. I became the silence they fear. Drop it in the comments. Let them see the strength they underestimated. Let yourself feel the absence you created, not as emptiness, but as elevation. Because this next chapter, it's not about making them see, it's about becoming someone they can't look away from. Stay with me. The fall has only just begun. Number 5. Ignoring them is the mirror they can't escape. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca. And nothing awakens the imagination like silence. That's what you've given them now. Not anger, not closure, not explanations, just silence, stillness. And that, my friend, is the mirror they cannot run from, because in silence there's nowhere to hide, no noise to distort the truth, no distractions to cover the regret, just them and their own mind spiraling with the ghosts of everything they did to push you away. You see, when you ignore someone, you're not being petty, you're being powerful, you're handing them a mirror, and that mirror doesn't show them your weakness, it shows them their reflection, their mistakes, their cruelty, the lies they fed you, the way they treated your love like garbage, like something disposable. They don't get to skip past that anymore, not when you've stopped giving them access to your energy. Because here's what happens when the texts stop, when the calls don't come, when your name disappears from their notifications, their imagination takes over. And imagination is cruel, especially when it's powered by guilt. Suddenly, they're not sure if you're thinking about them anymore, if you're moving on, if you're happier, if someone else has stepped into the light they never appreciated. And the most brutal part, they'll never know. Because you've gone silent. You're not feeding their curiosity. You're not posting cryptic stories. You're not dropping hints. You've become a void, and that void becomes the stage where their mind replays every scene they wish they could rewrite. They remember that time they left you on red while you were crying. That time they made you feel like a burden for having a heart. That time they laughed at your vulnerability like it was weakness. And now, there's no more applause, no audience, no control, just the truth. And the truth is this: they expected you to come back. They expected to treat you like trash and still have you waiting at the door. But you closed the door, you locked it, and you walked away without making a sound. And that, folks, is the greatest confrontation they'll ever face. Not an argument, not a breakdown, not a screaming match, but a reflection, one that shows them exactly who they were when they thought you were nothing. And now? Now that they finally see your worth, it's too late. Because you're not there to prove it anymore. They don't get to have front-row access to your evolution. They get to watch from a distance, alone, silently crumbling. They start filling in the blanks. Did they ever love me? Why aren't they reacting? Have I been replaced? Are they gone for good? And every answer their mind creates hurts more than the truth ever could. Because imagination always cuts deeper than reality. And your silence? That's the blade. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not being cold. You're just finally letting them sit in the seat they built. The one you occupied for months. The one where you cried, doubted, begged, and blamed yourself. That seat is theirs now. Let them sit. Let them feel it. Let them understand what it means to be invisible in the eyes of someone you used to matter to. Because ignoring them isn't cruelty, it's clarity. You're showing them what happens when you lose someone real, someone who saw their darkness and stayed, until staying became self-destruction. Now you've walked away, not out of hate, but out of self-worth. And the silence you left behind, that's the echo of your boundaries. Let them stare into that mirror. Let them wrestle with the reflection. Let them remember that you didn't change. You just got tired of begging someone to value what they were too blind to see. Say this out loud and type it in the comments like a line carved in stone. My silence is the mirror they fear. Because this isn't just about being ignored. This is about becoming unreachable. Not because you're cruel, but because you're free. Stay with me. The silence is starting to scream. And the mirror? It's only getting clearer. Number 6. You've made yourself emotionally inaccessible. This isn't a game. This isn't playing hard to get. This isn't some childish tactic to bait a reaction. No, This is transformation. This is what it looks like when you become emotionally inaccessible. Not because you're trying to hurt them, but because you finally chose to protect yourself. They didn't think you'd ever get here. Let's be honest, you didn't think you'd ever get here. You used to cry over the smallest shift in their tone. You used to analyze every emoji, reread every message, wait by the phone like your heartbeat depended on a notification. You lived for their attention, even when it felt like scraps. But something changed, and it wasn't overnight. It was quiet. It was slow, like ice freezing over the parts of you that used to burn for them. You didn't wake up one day detached. You earned your detachment through every moment they ignored you, every time they made you feel like a burden, every time they vanished and came back like your heart was some kind of revolving door. You felt that pain so deeply, for so long, it eventually turned into a wall. And now, you've disappeared. Not from the world, but from their world. You don't post for them anymore. You don't react. You don't hint. You don't perform. You're not trying to make them miss you. You've simply removed yourself from the places where they once felt secure. You've become emotionally unavailable in the purest, most stoic way possible. Not because of anger, but because of clarity. They'll scroll through your page looking for the version of you that used to bleed for them. But that version doesn't exist anymore. You're not bitter, you're just done. And that's what scares them. Because before, they always felt like they had a window into your mind. Even when you were hurt, they knew you still cared. But now, that window is boarded up, that house is locked, that street is empty, and they don't know how to find their way back. The regret doesn't come from seeing you angry. It doesn't even come from seeing you happy. It comes when they realize they don't have access to you anymore. Not to your thoughts, not to your emotions, not even to the version of you they took for granted. You're gone. And this time, it's real. And don't get it twisted. They'll try. They'll test the waters. A random like, hey, how have you been? A comment on a photo they shouldn't even be looking at. But you don't bite. You don't give them the satisfaction of a response, because your silence is louder than anything you could say. You're not here to be a second chance for someone who never showed up the first time. They say absence makes the heart grow fonder, but what they never tell you is that absence also makes the truth unavoidable. And the truth is, they never thought you'd become someone they couldn't reach. But you did. And now, they're locked out. The best part. You didn't need to block them. You didn't need to announce your exit. You just shifted. Silently. Powerfully. Permanently. They're haunted now, not by what you said, but by everything you didn't say. Because silence from someone who used to care? That's not emptiness. That's a funeral. Say this with me, feel it in your chest, and drop it in the comments like a declaration. I am emotionally unavailable to the past. You didn't disappear to get their attention. You disappeared to find your peace. And what's coming next? It's not revenge, it's revelation. Stay with me. They're about to realize you were the access they should have never lost. Number 7, the inner collapse begins, and they can't stop it. Emotional addiction is real, and you were their fix. Not because you begged, not because you chased, but because your presence was medicine, your energy, your loyalty, your constant love. It was the one steady stream in their chaotic world, and they didn't even realize they were addicted until you took it away. That's what your silence is doing now. It's not just a quiet room. It's not just unanswered texts. It's withdrawal. It's a full-body, full-soul collapse that they weren't prepared for. And the worst part, they don't even know how deep they're falling. Not yet. At first, they thought you were just sulking, that you'd come back, that this was just another one of your emotional moments. So they kept ignoring, kept pretending, kept scrolling past your silence like it meant nothing. But silence has a way of aging slowly, like poison in the bloodstream. It starts quiet, then hits all at once. Now they're spiraling. They won't admit it, but it's happening. Watch how they suddenly jump into another situationship, someone new, someone they barely know, not because they're healed, but because they're scrambling for the feeling you used to give them, that comfort, that safety, that spark. But here's the truth they can't outrun. Nothing feels like you. No amount of new bodies, no amount of late-night flirting, no rebound relationship can match what you gave, because what you gave was soul-deep. And soul-deep love doesn't get replaced. It haunts. So now they're trying to numb it, going out more, partying harder, posting more selfies with captions that scream, "Look how fine I am without you." But those captions, they're not confidence, they're cover-ups, they're masking the collapse, the emptiness, the regret that's starting to crawl into their chest like a storm with no name. They thought they could outrun it. They thought silence was a phase. But silence isn't the punishment. It's the consequence. It's the sound of someone finally loving themselves more than they loved being available. And that's what's tearing them apart. Because here's the thing no one teaches. Emotional addiction doesn't scream. It suffocates. Quietly. Slowly. In the hours after midnight when everything goes still and the brain starts replaying memories like a slideshow from hell. That laugh, that night, that moment they could have held on, but chose ego instead. Now they're left with emptiness, not because you're gone, but because they know you're not coming back. They're trying to fill the void you left, but they're using all the wrong tools, empty flings, loud friends, petty games, but none of it fits. Because your love wasn't shallow, it wasn't surface, it wasn't a convenience, it was presence, depth, soul. And once someone experiences that, everything else feels like a cheap copy. That's why they're breaking now, because the addiction didn't end when you left. It just got louder. They crave the attention you used to give so freely. The way your words healed their wounds. The way your loyalty never wavered, even when they didn't deserve it. Now, that supply is gone, and you've become a ghost they can't outrun. But here's the best part. You didn't have to yell. You didn't have to explain. You didn't have to lower yourself. You just vanished, and now the collapse is inevitable. They may try to pretend, they may post and pose and party, but deep down they know they lost something irreplaceable. Say this with your chest and drop it in the comments if you're done being someone's emotional crutch. I was their calm, now I'm their collapse. Let them spiral, let them panic. Let them feel the full weight of what they threw away. Because you're not breaking anymore. They are. And in the next moment, we'll talk about the final move that leaves them shattered while you rise untouched. Stay with me. This storm is only beginning. Number 8. When they come back. You're already gone. They always come back. That's the part they never tell you, right? The ones who ghost you, betray you, belittle you, they always circle back. But by the time they do, it's not even sweet. It's sad. Because when they return, full of apologies and fake clarity, they're not coming back to the version of you they left behind. They're coming back to find someone unrecognizable. And that, my friend, is the most powerful twist of all. You're not the same. You're not angry anymore. You're not obsessing. You're not watching the door. You're not checking your phone. You're not staying up at 2 a.m. hoping they'll suddenly realize your worth. That version of you, the one they broke, the one who would have done anything to keep them, it doesn't exist anymore. It died the day you chose yourself over their disrespect. It died in the silence. It died every time you said enough and meant it. So now, you're emotionally calm, not numb, powerful. You're mentally unavailable, not confused, clear. You're spiritually risen, not detached, untouchable, and they don't know what to do with that. They come back expecting the old script, expecting you to smile, to forgive, to hold the door open. But instead, they're met with stillness, with boundaries, with someone who doesn't need closure because they already closed the chapter without them. They come crawling back, but this time there's no entry, no cracks in your armor, no reaction, no softness. You don't entertain their messages. You don't explain your silence. You don't let them spin their sob story, because you finally see it for what it was, a test you passed by, not chasing. They say things like, "I miss you. I didn't know what I had. I've changed." But you don't need their words, because your life, your peace, your progress, your glow, it already says everything. You don't need revenge. You became the reminder, the one they underestimated, the one they thought would always be around, the one they broke, discarded, walked away from. And now, they'd give anything just to talk to you again. But you're not theirs to talk to anymore. And maybe they cry, maybe they regret it every single day, maybe they scream into their pillow, wishing they could go back in time. But guess what? That window closed. Not out of bitterness, but out of growth. You're not distant, you're elevated. And here's what they'll never understand. You didn't ignore them to get them back. You ignored them to get yourself back. And in doing so, you became everything they didn't believe you could be without them. So when they come crawling back, and they will, you won't even feel hate. You'll just feel peace. You'll smile, not because you want them again, but because you don't. Not anymore. Say it now, and type it in the comments so they feel it in every timeline they stalk. My silence isn't distance, it's elevation. Because this is how the story ends. They return to the place they broke you. But the version of you that needed them doesn't live here anymore. And the version that doesn't even answer the door. So let's end it here, with the truth they never expected. They thought your silence was weakness. They thought ignoring them was giving up. But now they know. It was the beginning of your power. You didn't disappear to hurt them. You disappeared to heal yourself. And in that silence, you rose, stronger, smarter, untouchable. If this message hit your soul, do this right now. Like this video, subscribe, and comment below. My silence is my power. Let them feel it. Let them see you rise. Because you're not waiting anymore. You're walking forward and never looking back.